Hi, this is Julie from Patchworks. Welcome to the Patchworks classroom. Today we're going to be here doing a recap of our January Moda University Club. This was the first session of our 10th season of Moda University, an exclusive club here at Patchworks. We have a very informal setting here in the classroom, and I wanted to show you what we were talking about. Our featured fabric line of the month is Strawberry Fields Revisited by Fig Tree. It was inspired by the beautiful Moda Frivol tin, number 6 of 12, that has been released. This gorgeous collectible tin has decorative coverings of the Strawberry Fields fabric. If we open it up, we will find 42 7-inch squares, all tied with a pretty little Moda ribbon. We have a pattern for the vintage quilt, which has churn dashes and 9 patches that is sitting on the front of our table that you get to see just a little snippet of. Our super sweet treat for the month are these cute, exclusive quilt labels. One for your Frivol quilt and one for your larger quilt. And then my very favorite part of every collectible Frivol tin is the maker card. On the maker card, we have a quote that was picked by the designer of the fabric line that's featured that month. And on the back, we have a beautiful pattern which is shown in both 4.5 and 6-inch finish sizes. Joanna picked the twin star for this month, and her quote is, "God put me on this earth to accomplish a certain number of things. Right now, I'm so far behind, I will never die." Calvin and Hobbes. Ha! That's pretty funny. So, that is the great Frivol that inspired our fabric line for the month. What we do in Moda University is that we choose our featured fabric line of the month, and all members receive a Fat 8 pack of that featured fabric line. So 8 Fat 8s makes a yard of fabric, and they're a little bit bigger than a charm or something. You have 9 by 20 inches that we can do some really great stuff with. Oftentimes for these small little packs, we bring to life a Moda Bake Shop project. This month we are bringing Hearts of Flutter by Robin of Craft Sisters to life. She made a super cute wall hanging or table topper with the first crush line by Sweetwater. We did our version and the Strawberry Fields Revisited. Isn't this cute? The pattern is designed for charms and mini charms, but we provided cutting instructions of how to get the fabric required from your Fat 8 pack from Club. I have a Fat 8 here on the wall here, which you may be able to see just a little bit from far behind. So we cut a 2.5-inch strip, a 5-inch strip, and then we have a little bit left over that we can use for a single fold binding or just save for another fun project. From that, we are going to subcut our 5-inch squares. We can get 4 5-inch squares. And then we'll subcut 2.5-inch squares. We can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 2.5-inch squares from each of those Fat 8s. Now that we have that together, let's put our block together. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your little 2.5-inch squares and create 10 4-patch blocks. Sewing 4 together. To get the scrappiness that you need, you aren't going to take advantage of any strip piecing. You're just going to sew 4 2.5-inch squares together. Easy peasy, right? The next thing that we're going to do is that we are going to pair fabric combinations of the 5-inch squares that we're going to use for our super cute hearts. Now, Robin has some great instruction how to face those 5-inch squares together, draw some hearts, and cut them apart. But what we wanted to do is we actually wanted to use some reversible fabric to make this a little bit simpler of a project. So we're going to be using her template that has a really deep V in it. And the deep V allows us to have our seam allowance in there so that it can be just a nice sweetheart. And to make the reversible fabric, what we're going to do is we are going to select a charm square, and we're going to back it with fusible web adhesive. You can use your very favorite fusible web adhesive. I think I used Heat and Bond Light on that one, as that's what we have in the classroom at the moment. So your favorite brand will work just fine. After your one side is backed with fusible web adhesive, you're going to pair it with another fabric. So you're going to put your wrong sides together. Now you need to make sure that you keep your iron and your ironing board safe. So what I like to do is I just use our leftover paper from that paper backing of the fusible web adhesive, and we're just going to couch this in between the paper, and then we'll press it according to the manufacturer directions. What I like to do is I like to just let it cool for a moment so that number one, we don't burn our hands, but number two, the extra fusible web that might be sitting there peels off and comes back with it, so we can just cut it off rather than leaving some sticky gummy residue on our paper that we then might worry about transferring to our next piece of fabric that we're couching in between this paper. Does that make sense? Good. After you have this together, you are going to be able to cut out your hearts. So on this one, we cut out one. Yes, I cheated and I just used what we had. But if you cut carefully, you can actually get 2 or maybe even 3 hearts out of each 5-inch square sandwich. Now that we have our hearts cut out, we are going to pair the hearts with a background fabric, okay? So I here have a heart that we made, 2-sided heart, and I thought that we'd pair it with the really cute strawberry fabric. We need to cut both of them in half, okay? And then we're going to stitch them together. So why are we cutting them apart? Well, we're cutting them apart because we want to have a little bit of dimension here, okay? So by having the little bit of dimension, we're piecing this in. We could stitch and applique it on top. That would create a little bit different type of block for you. So I will show you how we face these together. We'll just use our little board here to stick this. So we're going to position 1/2 of our 5-inch block, half of our heart. We'll put the other half there, so I actually didn't lay this out quite right. Here we go. Here, put the other half right sides together. And then we're going to put our 2.5 by 5-inch rectangle right on top. We'll stitch our 1/4-inch stitch, and then when we open it, trim everything down to 4.5 inches. Put your blocks together in this grid. We followed her instruction, facing 1 row of hearts down, 1 row of hearts up, down, and up. You can find the full instructions for this on modabakeshop.com. So that's modabakeshop.com. The pattern is Hearts Aflutter by Robin of Craft Sisters. The next part of our meeting, we're going to be talking about a 12-pack pattern. A 12-pack pattern is a blueprint pattern that we get from Moda Fabrics. If you don't shop at Patchworks, ask your local quilt shop to be able to get you some 12-pack patterns. We have paired our fat stacks, which is our 12 packs, 12 beautiful fat quarters that we coordinate from a specific fabric line. We chose a nice balanced green, teal, beige, yellow, pink, and the gorgeous fig tree red from this pack to make this beautiful quilt. The quilt requires 12 fat quarters, which would be a fat stack, 1.25 yards of your block centers and cornerstones. We chose this really cute polka dot, 2 3/4 of backgrounds and sashings, and 2.5 yards for borders and binding. For your back, you can use whatever you'd like. We used some beautiful previous fig tree, 5.5 yards. The trick in this particular quilt is the cutting of the fat quarter. We all know that fat quarters are great to collect and be able to use for beautiful scrappy quilts. Sometimes though, the challenge is that we need to cut the fabric efficiently in order to get the shapes and sizes that we need. So on the first part of this quilt instruction, we've been provided a nice layout for how to cut this. We are going to cut a 2.5-inch strip, a 4.5-inch strip, and then this is where it gets tricky. We need a 12 3/4 inch square that we're going to cut in half twice diagonally for our quarter square triangles that we use in the block. So to do that, without chopping off all of the other fabric that we need, we are going to make a straight cut. We're going to cut over 12 3/4 inches. Then we're going to cut our 2.5-inch strip that we need, and this is extra. We're going to come back. We're going to clean up our 12 3/4 inch, turn it into a square. We'll cut in half and in half again diagonally so that we can create 4 beautiful quarter square triangles. And then we're going to subcut all of our rectangles that we need in order to make our flying geese. So we have subcut all of those. And now we're ready to go. To make our block, we will need that quarter cut like this, and then we will need our background 2.5-inch squares that we can create connector style flying geese. Connector style flying geese is great because you're using squares and rectangles instead of having to use triangles and putting them together. So it's a little bit easier for making your flying geese. I have a little layout here. When making a connector style flying geese, I like to use my quick quarter ruler. A quick quarter ruler is a molded ruler that has a point at either end and a slot in the center. You're able to put that point right up into the corner of your square and position it, the slot, to the other corner. It comes in a 6-inch and a 12-inch size, and I love both. Then we are going to mark using my favorite marking utensil. I like the Soline ceramic lead pencils. This may be the older style of pen. However, these leads are so super cool. They come in pink and green and yellow, and pink is my favorite color because you can see them on light and dark fabrics. You want to, of course, use the lightest hand possible no matter what you're using. I put a little bit heavier hand, so hopefully you can see this. We marked our one triangle, and to make the connector style flying geese, you'll position right sides together. You'll sew on this line. Sure, you could just go for it and stitch a diagonal line, but I like to go ahead and mark it before I sew, just to make sure that it's accurate. Then you're going to stitch right on top of it. And before you go ahead and press it, you can make the determination if you wanted to leave the excess or if you wanted to trim it off. If you trim it off, you're reducing the bulk. The one benefit though is that if you're piecing, leaving on the extra bulk, you're able to be able to true up to the rectangle that you have. So it's your choice. I would try it both ways to see what you like. And then after you've trimmed or not trimmed, you're going to take another square that you've marked and position it on the other side, stitch, and flip back, and you have a beautiful flying goose. So you need a lot of flying geese for this block. We're going to look here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 flying geese. You are going to assemble them in units of 3. You're going to make these beautiful corners. By these corners, you're taking squares and putting half square triangles on as instructed through the cutting instructions in the pattern. Putting them together in a row. You're going to piece in these quarter square triangles in between, on the opposite side of the row. Now when you're working with a quarter square triangle, you have bias here, right? And I know a lot of us are really scared of bias. What I recommend when we're cutting, and we didn't talk about it earlier because I know we talk about it in class all the time, is I do like to pre-treat my fabric before I'm cutting it, especially on the bias, with a starch product. My favorite is June Taylor's Quilter Starch Savvy. You could also use Best Press, Magic Sizing, your choice, to get the results that you need to help it stay a little bit firmer and crisper. But be aware that you do have a bias, so you have to use a little bit of caution when you're piecing all of this together. It comes together beautifully, and you will make one block out of each fat quarter. You'll have all 12 that we'll put together with a little bit of sashing and our cornerstones and finish it off with a border of your choosing. We did an all-over quilt design on it to help the blocks shine, and we had a lot of fun with it. Go ahead and bind it with the fabric that you chose for your border. And that is how you make Due South, the newest 12-pack pattern. Now we're ready to talk about the progressive patchwork sampler that we're going to be working on this year in Moda University. We chose to use the Moda Sampler Shuffle this year. I know if you've been online, you've seen it all around, and maybe we're a little bit late to the game, but we still have lots of fun with it. So the Moda Sampler Shuffle are 6-inch squares put together. We're going to be making 30 all year, and then we have a great setting for it. So we're going to show you the first 3 blocks today. The first block is presented by designer Pat Sloan. All of the different Moda Sampler Shuffle blocks have been designed by a different Moda fabric designer. Block number 1 is a very simple half square triangles paired with squares. So we have 4 patch we put together for this cute little block. Block number 2 is presented by me and my sisters. We have 3 fabrics that we're using this time. We're going to have a 9 patch in the center and frame it out with a background and cornerstones. And the third block is presented by Sandy Gervais. It uses the Easy Triangle unit. The Easy Triangle unit has a rectangle where we put connector style squares on either side, but instead of facing it like we did in the Flying Goose, we position them parallel to create 2 half square triangle units without a seam. You can find all of that information in the pattern. For the fabric requirements for the quilt this year, the Moda had recommended that you start with your scraps or that you start with a layer cake to get going. I know some of you like to have things a little bit more cohesive, so I recommend that you start with a fat stack, 12 fat quarters, that's 3 yards of fabric. It's the approximate fabric equivalent to a layer cake. And then what I want you to do is I want you to grab 2 yards of a background. So I'm using the Petite Prince Tube by French General that came out last month, and I paired it with a beautiful background. This is from Eliza's Indigo by Betsy Chuchian. I grabbed 2 yards of background and a fat stack so that my quilt will be a little bit more cohesive. I challenge you in the audience there to stretch yourself and use your scraps as you're putting this together. And I am using this example of a very simple controlled palette here for those of you that maybe are a little bit newer at this and maybe just need to make sure that you don't have the question of colors or what's going to go with what. So we're starting a little bit simpler for you, but I look forward to seeing all of your great scrappy combinations. Thanks so much for joining us today. I hope you had as much fun as I did. In case you aren't able to join us at the shop, I wanted to offer you the opportunity to get Club delivered right to your home. You can receive 8 Fat Aids of our featured fabric line of the month, as well as all the fun project sheets that we covered. Of course, all of this is available without me, but I know sometimes you have limited access to different things. So if you wanted them printed out, as well as some great tips and tricks from us, you can have all of this delivered to your doorstep for $20 a month. Let us know, give us a call at the shop. We can customize your deliveries for you, or you can set up for an auto subscription to receive all the different featured fabric lines throughout the year so you can play along with us. Thanks so much. See you soon.